Palm Springs was directed by Max Barbakow and stars Andy Samberg, Cristin, Milioti, and J.K. Simmons. In this movie, Andy Samberg plays a carefree man named Niles who attends a wedding in Palm Springs, California. At this wedding, he has a chance encounter with the reluctant maid of honor Sarah, played by Cristin Milioti. However, things get a little tricky when they find themselves unable to escape the venue, themselves, or each other, hereby creating a romantic comedy. And if I were to get any further in that plot synopsis, it's gonna get into heavy spoiler territory, so I'm just gonna leave it right there for now. So honestly, I knew nothing going into this movie. I did not sit through a single trailer, and honestly, I feel like that's the best way to experience Palm Springs, knowing nothing, because I was incredibly blown away by this movie. I loved it. It was... oh man. In my opinion, this is one of the best films of the entire year so far. I loved it. Let's talk about why. First and foremost, the casting in this movie is so incredible. The acting is superb. Andy Samberg. Wow. Oh man, I love that guy so much. So you guys can tell, I think Andy Samberg is perfectly cast as Niles. He brings such an incredible amount of sarcastic charm to this role. I've been a fan of this guy for such a long time. I've loved his stint on SNL. He is so incredible in the Lonely Island sketches. I threw it on the ground, namely being my favorite of the bunch. To me though, I feel like Andy Samberg will be Jake Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine forever. I love him so much in that show. But he knocks this role out of the park. Without getting too much into spoiler territory, if someone is stuck in a situation like Palm Springs presents to us, usually the movie presents them in the denial stage of grief. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the 5 stages of grief. Denial, of course, being the first one. But when we meet Andy Samberg's character, he has already accepted his situation, the last stage of grief. And I think that was a super refreshing turn. What else can I say, guys? Andy Samberg pulled that off to perfection. I think this is one of the best performances of his entire career, if not the best. He was great. Cristin Milioti is in this film as the female lead, Sarah. You guys might know her from her stint on How I Met Your Mother. I know her from playing Teresa in The Wolf of Wall Street. Yet again, an excellent performance, perfectly cast. She was so awesome. She's not only a panicked person in this situation, which is great for the comedic timing, but she's also very intelligent and very resilient. When she figures out that she's in the situation she's in, she recognizes it right away, which again is a very, very refreshing turn for a movie like this. Usually the female leads would be completely oblivious to this situation for God knows what reason, but she's super intelligent, she's resilient, she studies quantum physics. I think this is a supremely interesting character. Her comedic timing was so great, but not only that, her chemistry with Andy Samberg was so believable. She plays off of him really well, and he does vice versa. All of these things made me really, really happy to see. Once again, they're playing around with the premise of this movie to make supremely interesting and entertaining characters, and Sarah was no exception. And J.K. Simmons is also in this movie. Need I say more than that? Simmons plays Roy, a character that Niles meets early on in his struggles, and he is stuck in a similar situation. Fantastic performance. The scenes with him, even though it's not a whole ton, perfect. Such an amazing actor in everything he does. Now getting to the technicals and Max Barbakow's direction, I think this is a gorgeous looking movie. Very beautifully shot. There were a plethora of shots in the Palm Springs deserts. Quite beautiful. And I think these shots are very important because they really helped accentuate the given circumstances to a T. We also get a lot of shots at the poolside with Andy Samberg, and I think these were super helpful as well in order to bring the relaxed part of his personality to the forefront. Now, if this sounds like I'm being overly analytical about Palm Springs, I'm doing this absolutely on purpose. I think this is a movie that film buffs like me are going to be analyzing for years to come. But anyway, back to it. The editing in this film, very crisp, very pristine. Like I said, the movie has a really great charm and great wit behind it, and the screenplay and the acting definitely brings that. But I feel like the editing only helps to bring that wit to an even greater level than it already was. The reason I say that is because I think it really helps the comedic timing just flow so seamlessly. There were a lot of points in Palm Springs where I was busting up laughing, and I really feel like the editing helps that comedic timing along. Very fast-paced editing, and that's another thing, guys. This is a very, very quick movie. It's a very easy one to sit through. It's only 90 minutes long. I felt like I could have watched this film for 3 hours and not have gotten bored. I mentioned it briefly earlier in the review, but last but not least, I want to talk about the screenplay by Andy Ciara. I think the screenplay is absolute genius, but the biggest praise that I can give the screenplay and the movie as a whole is that the screenplay and the director put a lot of trust in its audience. There's not a lot of explaining going on. Some of my other reviews on this channel, I lambast films for their overuse of exposition. This film barely had any. We're in it. And I feel like this makes for a much more enjoyable viewing experience as an audience member, more so than usual, definitely. Oh, my goodness, guys. This is absolutely one of the best films of the year so far. Definitely recommend you check it out. Man, I really wish that this wasn't a spoiler-free review, honestly, because the more I get into this plot, the more it gets into spoiler territory, and I really want you guys to watch this film without any spoiling. But real quick, one of the problems that I think people will have with this film is the familiarity of the premise. And this is gonna get deep into spoiler territory, so if you don't want to be spoiled, I recommend stopping the video right here and then go watch Palm Springs on Hulu yourself and then come back right where you left off. But the most obvious comparison that this movie is going to get is Groundhog Day, starring Bill Murray. And this is just based off of that premise of Groundhog Day alone. But honestly, it didn't really bug me that much. This is because I feel like with what they were able to pull off with this movie, it comes off like its own unique creation. And this is especially with all the things they were able to do to twist such a unique premise of Groundhog Day, which is something I really, really appreciated. And I thought it was beautifully handled as well. I mean, it's kind of apples and oranges here, but this movie also makes me think of 2014's Edge of Tomorrow, starring Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. And by the way, that is the only title that I will accept for that film. It's not whatever Warner Brothers wants to call it every 2 weeks. It's Edge of Tomorrow. Got it? Okay. Cool. But basically, Edge of Tomorrow takes the Groundhog Day concept and it puts it into this really badass sci-fi action environment. And it still feels like its own unique creation. And I loved Edge of Tomorrow. I didn't really care about the familiarity of it. Same thing with Palm Springs. They use the same premise here and it pays dividends. They do enough things to kind of tinker with the premise a little bit just to make it its own unique creation, but like I said, the familiarity just doesn't bug me in the long run because this is such a well-crafted film. It's so charming. It's so well acted as well. I loved it. Definitely go check it out. If I were to nitpick one thing about the movie, there are a couple of spots where it drags a little bit. And also, I feel like I could have used maybe like one more scene. But nevertheless, I thought the ending to this movie was a perfect ending. Because again, the screenwriter and the director, that whole ending scene, the whole denouement, they put enough trust in their audience for them to really put the pieces together of the end result. And it's supremely satisfying. I dug Palm Springs so much. I definitely recommend you check it out. I'm gonna give it an A. Absolutely seek this one out, guys. I strongly, strongly recommend it, especially to those of my viewers that love romantic comedies. Superb acting, great direction, great screenwriting, a unique premise with enough twists around it to make it its own unique creation. I loved it. It's on Hulu right now. Go check it out if you haven't already. Guys, thank you so much once again for checking out the video. If you like what you're seeing from me, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. You guys are the best, seriously. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Look forward to more reviews very soon. And with all that being said, back talk, commence.